police power to stop and search people is one of the most contentious public issues. Every year, police officers in England and Wales record about 2 million stops and about 1 million searches. Surveys suggest that the police count out many more than this, perhaps 8 million car stops and 3 million foot stops. The principle is that state intrusion should always be necessary, proportionate, fair, and equal before the law. Now, to StopWatch. The idea of a coalition of scholars, researchers, non-governmental organisations and activists to highlight the abuse of stop and search crystallised at a conference here at King's College earlier this year. All participants agreed that there was a need for better research and public engagement on this issue. There were key things that all concerned were explicitly against. The coalition is against the abuse of stop and search. It's against racial profiling and against the disproportionate use of the power against ethnic minorities. But we also think that there should be a positive agenda. So StopWatch is for police accountability. We are for research documenting good policing, of which there are many, many examples. We're for action promoting the development of alternative stop and search powers. We're for innovative ways that communities themselves can work with or without the police to create safe and peaceful neighbourhoods.
Structural inequality produces ugly results. Where fear and hope are polarizing forces, hope and love do not produce fear, hatred, and violence. Critical issues confront us in the 21st century: a faltering economy, persistent poverty, entrenched inequality. Perhaps the most important ones are the civil rights to be safe and to be free, free from profiling and discrimination based on race or gender or sexual preference. The expectation that we can live our lives in an atmosphere of peace, safety, justice, and freedom has always been vital to the civil rights movement. Dr. King said, "Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere." We've seen a historical pattern of the dangerous and damaging impact of the profiling. Remember that the roots of the rise of Nazism and the Holocaust lie in the religious profiling of the Jewish people. We witnessed how a supposed enlightened culture got caught up in a season of terror. Britain is seen as an enlightened society with its high culture and history and universities. There's no surprise that institutionalized policies of race and targeting and race profiling is alive and well here. Structural inequalities and disparities remain, not based on distribution of brains, but on distribution of privilege and resources. In places, a special burden on leadership. When racial profiling and discrimination is detected, leadership must find ways to correct it and to stop it. Leaders must stop the abuse of stop and search. Too many people live in fear of their freedom. Too many fear the police as much as they fear crime. They fear that they may be stopped and searched without good reason, arrested without good cause. They fear that they will have their personal details recorded on camera, recorded on official databases. With good reason, many people fear that they will be criminalized, all because of their race or their religion. In today's world, that's a moral disgrace. When racial profiling rears up, leadership must rise up to detect it, correct it, and stop it. Leaders, I say again, must stop the abuse of stop and search. We need a higher quality of liberty. We have a right to expect that the police will be our protectors and not our tormentors. Police and communities must be allies, not adversaries. We need each other. We have a right to expect that the police will help to create peaceful and safe communities without unnecessary interference. We have the right to privacy, and that we need not be searched without good reason. We have a right to be able to move freely, to associate with our friends and neighbors without harassment. We have a right to demonstrate and to protest and to be treated fairly and without racism, prejudice, or discrimination. Racial and religious profiling and discrimination undermines the dream and promise of democracy. Democracy promises equal protection under the law, equal access, equal opportunity, and individuality. No one should be denied equal access based upon race, gender, religion. These are anti-democratic forces at play. The best of Britain, your police and fire and university departments, your institutions, they must help change behavior. They must help change attitudes by example. But most of all, we must change laws, enforce and farm the laws of justice. It's not a hallmark of a free society. It's evident that British society still does not treat all of its citizens with fairness and equality, and this is unjust. Targeting people because of their race, religion, or color is unfair, ineffective, and counterproductive. It must be against the law. Policing and government must be for the people, with and not against the people. That's why I'm here today to support the launch of StopWatch, a new coalition of activists committed to eliminating racial discrimination in policing, bringing an end to racial profiling, and finding better ways of keeping communities safe and peaceful. Dream of freedom, of a new justice, a new day, a new way. Dream of a new Britain, an emerging Europe. Red, yellow, brown, black, and white were all precious in God's sight. And so, go forward by hope and never backwards by fear. Keep faith, in the end, faith will prevail. Keep hope alive. Thank you very much.
Like a lot of young people, I'd had encounters with the police, but one incident had a really powerful impact on me. I was 18, and it was during the day, and I was with friends. I was well dressed because I was going to the theatre that evening. I had on a white shirt and trousers. And then the police van drew up. Officers looked at me, and I looked at them. One officer came out shouting, "What are you looking at?" When I asked what the problem was, he threatened to arrest me. And when I asked for a Recommendation 61 form, he laughed and said there was no such thing. Now, from the work I'd been doing with the police already, I knew that wasn't true. But nonetheless, I was arrested under the Public Order Act. They took my fingerprints and DNA, and I was held in a cell for 2 hours. Later, the charges were dropped, and I wrote to the borough police, but never received a satisfactory explanation.
The reality is the majority of young people are law-abiding, but often feel stereotyped, especially when they are stopped for what seems to be like no reason. Negative images in the media also don't help, and young people often feel they are viewed with suspicion.
Unfortunately, most young people say if it's their word against the police, then forget it. Forget about it. It's the quality of the encounter that matters most. When it's done badly, it's humiliating and degrading, especially as it's usually in public. Also, it's very intrusive, and as a young person, they can feel intimidated.
I'm a mother of an 18-year-old boy who, basically, I want to know how are we actually going to stop the stop and searches. I mean, I moved from Hackney to Hampstead thinking that things were going to be better for my son, and they haven't been. This goes out to the whole panel. How are we actually going to stop all of this?
It's a good question. Thank you very much. I think that StopWatch and initiatives like StopWatch need to really escalate, need to grow. And thank you very much to Second Wave, because we need citizens to really realise that what the principle of policing is in the UK is policing by consent. And I don't remember ever consenting to the fact that my son would be stopped and searched 11 times in 11 months, and that's what has happened recently. And I'm sure that the police themselves don't like the fact that we haven't really got stop and search, we've got stop and lurch. It moves from record it, don't record it, to, you know, we've had £10 million worth of research. From institutional racism to no, it's not institutional racism. I am really fed up of the seesaw when they're trying to justify the disproportionality in the figures. We cannot get away from the fact that black people are 7 times more likely to be stopped with reasonable suspicion and 27 times more likely to be stopped without reasonable suspicion. Make up your minds. Do we have to have reasonable suspicion or not? Let's make these powers fair. If we've got to have stop and search, then let's not have stop and lurch. But it's up to all of us to join StopWatch and organisations like this to demand the policing that we deserve.
Let's bring in the member of the audience now. A few people well better qualified to talk about the experience of being a black person in the police than David Michael.
With my 30 years' experience in the police, for me it's the opposite. It's about the attitude of the high command. It's about their belief and their emphasis and their assertion that stop and search is a useful tool.
I think there's a question of political accountability. The fact of the matter is that these pace changes are very, very serious, and they will have impact on young people in London in particular. And I think that one of the things we can do is ensure that our political representatives know that we are not happy with that change. I mean, I know it's people say, oh, what's the point in talking to my MP? What's the point? I think it's very important that on this occasion it's made clear that this change is unacceptable.
You know, police aren't going to want to go into any kind of place where if they sat down here and then everyone starts throwing abuse at them, saying, oh, you did this to my son and you did this. We need to move on from that, because it's a fact. We know this is happening, and try and build bridges rather than accusing and you know, victimizing them at the same time, because like I say, they're human and they are going to do wrong and you know, also do right.
Please join StopWatch, and together we can sort this.